Everybody, this is Scott from Laura Hypnotherapy, and thank you for watching this video and downloading my ebook called How to Understand Addiction in 3 Diagrams. And I also want to talk you through the ebook as well. So let's get straight into it, because How to Understand Addiction in 3 Diagrams, it's basically the 3 diagrams: physical addiction, habits, and emotions. So I'm Scott, and I help people like you to be able to get a better result with your client if you're helping them with addiction. So whether it is cigarettes, it could be sugar, or it could be the next 4, which is marijuana, cocaine, coffee, or alcohol, or basically any addiction that's a substance. Physical addiction, habits, and emotions. The way it works. There's something, I'm going to zoom into this so you can see basically when you're running a session, there are these 6 parts that I want you to go through. So socialize, yearn, and strategy is the first half of your therapy session with a person. So that's where you're doing your counseling. The second half of the session, the TEM, the trance, explore, and mobilize, that's the second half of the session. So that's actually the hypnotherapy that you do. The part that says strategy, so after socialize, yearn, strategy, that's the part of your session where you're going to be using these 3 diagrams. So just to run you through the whole process just really quickly. So socialize, just the first couple of minutes of your session with somebody, it's building rapport. When we say deep and wide, deep is usually when you ask, tell me more about that, and wide is when you ask, what else? So let's say like a teenager comes home, like they're 15, and you ask them like, how was school? And they go like, ugh, I don't want to talk about it. If you go deeper and go, tell me more about that, you'll probably get nothing because they've already kind of shown you a complete disinterest in answering that particular question. So if you want to get that, say, 15-year-old to answer you, you're much, much better off going wide and asking something else, or like, or what else? Or like, say, asking, so what are you doing tonight? What have you got on for the weekend? Like, what else has been happening? Like, what video games are you playing? What's going on with your friends? So deep and wide is a method to literally save you energy when you're tired in your session, to socialize and to build rapport as quickly as possible when you're basically seeing lots and lots of people, and you need to make sure that you get a rapport with them really, really fast. The deep and wide is just your steering wheel. An example, let's say like if somebody says that, oh, my daughter just got married, and you go, okay, great, what else has been happening? That's an example of going wide when you should have gone deep, if that makes sense. So like they're looking for a reaction, like when they're saying, like, oh, my daughter just got married, that deserves a reaction of like, well done, tell me more about that. Where did the wedding happen? What was it like? What was the weather like? Tell us about the wedding. So deep and wide is a brilliant way to socialize in the first 2 to 5 minutes to make sure that like you and your client are doing really well. So the script that I tend to do, this is all in the ebook as well. I've written this script out because like it's a very, very thorough ebook. It's on its way to your email inbox. Please check your spam folder, your spam, or your junk spam folder, because it'll be there, and it's something that I really feel is going to benefit you a lot. And reach out and ask questions if you have questions about the ebook, about the 3 diagrams, because these 3 diagrams are just going to help so much. So let's say that like, so somebody's on the other side of my door, they've knocked, I've got curtains actually, so I can just hear them come in. And then I basically yell out, hi, I'll be there in just a second. Then I open the curtains from my waiting room to my main treatment room. And then I say, yeah, if I could just get you to, I'll say, hi, I'm Scott. Can I just get you to come in and take this middle seat here? So I've directed them with where to sit. And then I sit in my seat that's not too far away, like with the social distancing, it's a little bit further away now. The next thing I basically ask is, have you had a busy week? So I'm not getting on topic yet. I'm basically socializing still, just for a couple of minutes. So what's been happening this week? Have you had a busy one? Is it still cold? Is it still hot out there? Is it quiet out there? Is it what's been happening? And then after a couple of minutes, it's very much time to get on with the actual topic of the session. So that's where I basically pull out my terms and conditions page and put it in front of them. And basically, I put a pen on top and I just say, can I just get you to take a look at just the terms and conditions? And then they're handing me their client questionnaire that I've emailed them before. And then I read it while they're going through the terms and conditions. I've never asked anybody to sign the terms and conditions, but I've only had, I think it's 2 people now out of 4,000 that wouldn't sign it, and then I wouldn't go on with the session, and I basically just sent them home without charging them. Um, and so it's kind of like, it's an amazing technique that you just put the terms and conditions on the page, put the pen on top, and then you literally just do something else for a minute, like read the client questionnaire. Then it becomes time for the why for yearn. So we've gone from socialize to yearn. The deep and wide rule apply here, But now it's time to get on topic. So there's the three R's that we talk about. So results, reality, and roadblocks. Results is the future. Like say that you ask them, so you're looking to get off cigarettes today, or you're looking to get off marijuana today, or you're looking to get off cocaine today, or you're looking to get off alcohol today, or you're looking to get off sugar today, or you're looking to get off whatever the drug, the addiction might be, marijuana, or whatever their actual substance is, the results. So you're looking to do that. Reality, okay, so like, what have you tried in the past? What's worked best? Where are you at? How much are you having per day? Okay, great. The roadblocks, then you can ask questions about, well, what seems to get in your way the most? Like, what are you using the substance for? Is it more to kind of hang out with people socially to connect? Is it to disconnect, to get away, to have some space? Because, like, if it's a cigarette, whether the person is a provider or a carer, like maybe a provider, like say they're at work and it's a work break. They're a carer at home, it's a child break to get away from the kids. And then once we've worked out, like once they've told me a little bit about their roadblocks, that particular line of conversation starts to kind of die off, and then it comes time to kind of really pick the energy back up with a very, very clear explanation of what it is that you actually do. And that's when you enter the strategy part of your session. So when you're doing the strategy part of your session, this is the three diagrams. Now, I do not put three diagrams on the desk in front of them. I don't do that. I do one at a time. So I do all three, but I don't do all three at the same time, if that makes sense. I want to save this particular part talking about the three diagrams for a few minutes from now, like when we actually get into the diagrams, so that I can just quickly cover the system part, but just knowing there's my placeholder right there for strategy. I'm going to be talking about the three diagrams. This is where it goes in the session. Then we move on to the second half of the session, trance, where in the ebook, I have, in the part that explains the trance, I've got another ebook called How to Hypnotize an Addict that talks about the trance acronym and how to actually do the hypnosis. So we cover that. The explore, where you actually, the same stuff that you did in the strategy, the three diagrams, you basically, in a way, while they're hypnotized, you're using the ideas that have been established from those three diagrams in more sensory ways, where we say, don't wake up the cat. The CAT is an acronym that stands for critical analytical thinking. So when we say, don't wake up the cat, what we're saying is, don't ask them maths problems where they have to wake up and answer. Like if you say, what's 7 times 4? It basically interrupts the hypnosis too much. We want them to be in that very nice, gentle, relaxed trance state. So when we say, don't wake up the cat, don't tell them to open their eyes and start looking at the diagrams. When you showed them the diagrams, you would have established enough metaphors that you can then weave those metaphors into the actual therapy in order to help them to get off the substance. And then the M4 mobilize, wake up and next session, where you might do as I count from 1 up all the way up to 5, whatever your wake up process is. Again, it's in that trance ebook as well. And the next session, at the end of every session with a client, this is all I say. Besides, like, I just say, okay, I'll just turn the top light back on because I've got a lamp, so the room is kind of still lit. There's still light, but when they're in the trance, I don't have the main fluorescent lights on. And then I basically say, okay, I'm just going to go turn that light back on. How do you feel? Quite relaxed. Excellent. They'll be like, oh, wow, I went so deep. And then I just ask this one very important question. Are you happy to come back in about a week? Great. How does the same time next week work for you? Good. And then if it's something where they're paying session by session, I basically just say to them, so did you want to use card or cash, or what works best for you? I've already got their receipt printed. There's particular offers that we do, whether they do pay up front or whether they do session by session. And then I've got a particular script for that. So like if it's the 200 per session, or if it's like the upfront discount, which takes 10% off. So that's the system acronym. So that's how we run a session. And remembering the strategy part we haven't gotten into yet. So we're about to get into that. We also have another ebook. So when every time that I teach people about the therapy, they ask, well, how do I get clients? To save time so that I don't have to cover any marketing in this particular video, we've got another ebook called Facebook Ad Basics. We've also got a training group that's coming up on the 19th called Facebook Ad Basics. It's the last time we're running it this year, so we really, really want to get you involved in one of the last 3 spots because it's really awesome. I spend so much time on the phone to each person that's in, and there's only the 3 spots left, and it's such a cheap program. If that's something you need, if you need to basically, before the year's out, or before too much time passes, if you really need to get the clients in as well, so you can start doing this work with people, because this is the time in history where people need you the most. Do feel free to join that program. There's a link in the ebook, there's a link under this video to join if that's something that you need, and I absolutely recommend getting in quickly before those 3 spots are gone. This ebook, 20 Clients with Facebook Ads, it's about 10,000 words and it shows you exactly what happens in the program. There's a 21-day plan that only takes you between half an hour to an hour per day, that if you do those steps, you'll get clients, unless you haven't done the steps. And of course you will. And so this particular ebook is free. Again, like in the ebook that's been sent to your inbox on this topic, the one that's called How to Understand Addiction with 3 Diagrams, there's a link in that ebook to get this ebook, the 20 Clients with Facebook Ads, and it's something that helps you with the marketing. So if you're happy that we then don't need to cover any marketing training in this video, that frees this video up to make it a real video about how to get a result with clients using these 3 diagrams. So this is what the 3 diagrams are going to be about: addiction, or the physical addiction, and then the habits, and then the emotional map. So let me talk you through it one at a time. So the physical addiction. Mainly that the physical addiction is the first one I'd like to talk about. But the way that I introduce this topic to people of the actual frameworks, remember like how we've just basically finished the yearn part of the system. So we've basically gone deep and wide on results. So you'd like to be able to get off, let's say cigarettes for argument's sake to begin with. So you'd love to be able to get off the cigarettes today. They're like, yeah, okay. So what have you tried? So we're talking about the reality and what's been in your way the most, the roadblocks. Once you've gathered enough information that you feel that you get a picture of who your client is, it's time to get into the strategy part. Here's how I introduce it. Instead of saying, just kind of here's a framework, let's look at it, write this sentence down because it's really, really important as a pivot, and it re-energizes the session after you've basically asked questions. So if you're tired from going deep and wide, doing the 3 R's with people, this sentence is such a bang, powerful thing to say that really moves the session on. So this is what I like to say to people, and I'd like you to write this sentence, a few sentences down. So I say, the way I look at smoking is instead of looking at it as just one thing and saying, here it is, go cure it, we actually break it into its 3 separate parts. So basically there's the nicotine addiction, or just the relationship between the drug and the body. And then there's the habit, and the habits basically is just like everything you do. Like how do you walk, talk, or drive a car, or smoke? And the third part is the emotional battle, because the brain's always moving towards pleasure and away from pain. And that's how behaviors work. If we don't break it into those 3 different parts, people often try to go about solving the wrong problem. As in that, let's say that every time they get stressed, they smoke, they put a patch on. There's no patch for stress. Or every time they socialize with their mates and they have a drink and have a cigarette, there's no socializing patch. Like people aren't going to get together and say, hey, do you want to come and hang out and have a nicotine patch with me? It's not a thing that people do. Another one is at the end of the day, the reward. Like that people aren't going to, at the end of the day with their rewards, kind of go, I've done such a great day. I've done 12 hours of kind of doing work and then cooking for my partner and then looking after the kids. They're in bed. Now this is my time. I deserve a patch on my arm. They're not going to do that because there's no patch for reward. There's no patch for habits. There's no patch for stress. There's no patch to keep the kids away for 5 minutes. That's why we break this process up into the 3. So there's the physical addiction, the habit, and then the emotional battle. The first one I'd like to talk about is addiction. I'd like to talk about it first just because that's the easiest to describe. So now we're kind of like in the frame where they're ready to talk about physical addiction. I pull out a calendar. So these lines are things that I draw on a calendar. So basically I ask, let's say like we're going to use cigarettes for an example here. And I basically say, so have you smoked today? Almost always they'll say yes. If they say yes, I draw a line through the first box. I'm going to zoom into that so you can see it. So that red line that goes from the top of the box 1 to the bottom, I draw that and I say, okay. So what I'll do is I'll just draw a line through box number 1. And what I'd like to get you to do when you wake up tomorrow is just to tick the second half of box 1 to say that you've gone from now to the end of the day without any cigarettes. Does that make sense? It's like, yeah, great. And then basically I do this next part. I'm going to zoom in again to the 3 days. And I basically go, then by the time you get to the end of day 3, almost all of the nicotine has left the body. And that's when physical addiction finishes. And they're like, whoa, just 3 days, that's all it takes. I'm like, yeah. So it can sound very simple, like this is what I say to them still. It can sound very simple to say that after 3 days, the whole problem's over. But do you remember how we were talking about those three parts? The physical addiction, and then the habits, and then the emotional battle? Well, this is just the physical addiction part. We just haven't talked about the habits and the emotional battle yet. And then if you're happy to come back in a week, that's where I draw a circle in, the 1 week. And then I draw kind of a line from the 4 to 7 and basically go, then if you're happy to come back in about a week, then your body's had the 4 additional days to learn how not to be nicotine dependent. And we're like, does that make sense? Yeah, great. And then if, depending on the substance, I might tell them a little bit more about the substance. When it comes to cigarettes, I'll usually say things like that there's between 600 to 10,000 chemicals depending on which brand you get. And so when people say that, I'm craving nicotine, they don't say like, oh, I'm also craving tars and pesticides and all sorts of other things as well. They don't name all of the chemicals. And so like when you Google sugar in cigarettes, it's basically between 15 to 20% of the cigarette is sugar, which basically makes sugar the main ingredient. And so we just reinforce the idea of like saying basically this diagram, so diagram number 1, basically just means that 3 days and the physical substance addiction is basically over. Then we can move on to the second diagram. So when it comes to habits, I usually say things like, I tell my soy sauce story. It's in the book as well. I like to sort of give you this video plus the ebook so that you've got these 2 different methods to be able to really get more and more familiar with how to run these sessions with these 3 diagrams. So basically I say that habits is like how we do everything. The brain's only about the size of a fist, and the middle of it's mostly blood. So that basically means that this very small part of the front, like the frontal lobe, which is a genius part of the brain, which it understands like how to solve really complex puzzles, like, how to solve a Rubik's Cube, or if you want to learn how to do it, it can solve that. Learn to play guitar, speak Spanish, or do whatever, or just like life problems. But it is so small that it gets tired, and the midbrain takes over. The limbic system, the hippocampus, the midbrain, basically, the amygdala, which is the drug dealer of the brain that secretes dopamine and fills up the brainstem with it. It's the part that basically runs most of what we do. So like if you think of like, say, like there's a long tall field of grass and we get from one side to the other. So when I'm saying this, I'm using hand gestures. Like if I say that, imagine a long tall field of grass, I've got my hands out in front of me about a little bit wider than shoulder width apart. So like my hands aren't touching and they're not like out as far as they can be, but I'm basically demonstrating like, here's a long tall field of grass with my hands. That actually helps people to quit their drug substance more easily because you're putting them into the story by basically acting it out with your hands. It actually helps a lot for your confidence and for them. So to basically say to them, imagine like there's this long tall field of grass and you want to get from one side of the grass to the other, but it's big and it's thick and it's going to take some energy. So you push it with your hands or you stomp it with your feet. And by the time you get to the other side, it is just easier just to be able to come back just by using the path that you've already made. And so, of course, like if you wanted to get back, you could make a new path, but that just takes a lot of energy. So it's just easier just to keep using the path you've already made. Just go back and forth, back and forth. The same as like that every time that you, a human need pops up. It could be the need to be alone or to be with others, a need to like, get serious stuff done, or the need to play or reward or variety. How's the brain going to solve that need? Well, probably the way it always has in the past. So let's again take cigarettes as an example. He goes, well, I want to get away from the kids. How am I going to do that? Well, it's usually a cigarette. Well, I want to celebrate with my friends. How am I going to do that? Well, it's usually a cigarette. Or that it's the end of the day. I need a reward. What am I going to have? It's usually a cigarette. Well, I've got to have this morning meeting with myself where I'm thinking about like where I need to get. How am I going to do that? Well, it's usually a cigarette. And if it's usually a cigarette, it's usually going to be a cigarette again. Because in order for you to think consciously about everything, your brain would have to be basically 50 times bigger. And you'd have to like eat a lot more glucose throughout the day. You'd have to breathe a lot more oxygen in order to get all of that energy to power the brain. So it's going to be a very, very tiring process for the brain to always, always, always be thinking consciously, especially when it's only the size of a fist. So the brain is literally competing against itself for space, and it needs to prioritize particular pathways to get them more and more quickly. And this is what we call habits. Now, this is when I draw this next diagram. So the snowman one, or the conscious and subconscious, I basically say that the conscious mind understands logic, but the subconscious doesn't. The subconscious basically understands pictures, sounds, and feelings. So then I basically say that there's these words like not, quit, stop, and don't. The conscious mind understands these words. Like, you know what they are, but the subconscious does not understand words like not, quit, stop, and don't. Like if I was to say to you, could I please have a handful of don't? You're like, what? What's a handful of don't? Is it red, blue, heavy, light? What is it? Well, it sort of doesn't really make any sense because there's no picture, sound, or feeling. Or you can see like this part, like where I've gone next to pictures, PB for polar bear. If I said, could you please, or don't think about a polar bear? Would you or would you not think about a polar bear? Usually, like the answer would be like, yeah, I thought of it because you said it. Because then, if we were to say like up here, should I have the drug or not have the drug? The conscious mind understands or not, but the subconscious can't understand or not. So it brings the word drug down to here as either picture, sound, or feeling, and then the picture, sound, or feeling then goes into the subconscious and starts to become one of those behavioral patterns, if that makes sense. So the words that you use really matter. So then I ask them, why are you here? And then when they say like to quit smoking, okay, well, quit's one of these words up here. So quit, you could basically put a cross through that and say the subconscious can't hear that word. If I said, can you please quit thinking of the number 3? Well, you've said 3, so I'm thinking about 3 more. So the subconscious doesn't know how to use negations. So you've got to get an answer from them, which is usually something to do with, I am here to improve health. I'm also here, not just for the long term to improve health, I'm here for the short term to be able to have fun and celebrate with friends healthily. I'm also wanting to have rewards at the end of the day healthily. I also want to have this morning routine, like where I can get up and roll out of bed and do a ritual that's healthy before I start work or looking after the kids. I also want to be able to take breaks and get away from everybody for a couple of minutes and relax and reset and have boundaries healthily. So the brain's very good at these towards measures for pictures, sounds, and feelings. Let's say, like, if there's a 5-year-old girl and it's really late, it's time for bed, and you basically go, like, good night, sweet dreams, see you in the morning. That might be a fine thing to say, but you probably should not say, don't have those nightmares that make you wet the bed about zombies and vampires, because then they're just going to be thinking about zombies and vampires, if that makes sense. So the next diagram is about the 4 emotions. And this 4 emotion map, so like the whole reason for there being kind of this particular diagram is that the nicotine's out of the body in 3 days, or most substances, the primary effects are out of the body within the 3 days. And then it does take longer, depending on different substances, to either grow back the energy that it costs them, especially things like cocaine, if they're kind of on their last little bit of energy and nerves. It's going to take them like a month. That's not recovering from the substance addiction. That's recovering from fatigue, which is different, if that makes sense. But when it comes to emotions, when emotional needs are not met, there is pain. When you change a habit that has nothing to do with emotional needs, there is absolutely zero pain. Let's say, like, if you have to start using red pens instead of blue, there's no pain attached because there's no emotional need for you to use a particular color pen. But what if people were using their substance to either help them to get to sleep, to tolerate people, to be more social, to reward, because they're going, I work so hard, where's my reward? Well, there clearly can be like a lot of pain that if you just take the drug away, you've actually taken their coping mechanism away. But because the subconscious doesn't understand not, what we want to do is basically be able to give back to the subconscious and say, okay, we've taken away a coping mechanism, which was a harmful substance, but we're giving you back 4 different ones for 4 different categories. Now let's take a look at the actual emotional map. So you can see there's survival at the top, love at the bottom, status to the left, and identity to the right. These are the things that people tend to feel needs for. But we've also broken it down differently, where there's achievement and breaks. Achievement is basically being able to get things done, like with energy and clarity. Often people will have stimulants or a cigarette or sugar, carbs, coffee. And with breaks, where people just need to reset and have boundaries, they need to basically get their energy back for a little bit. When you put achievement and breaks together, that's survival. Often, like things like coffee can be an addiction there, where they go like, well, the coffee for achievement and breaks basically means for achievement, I want to get my work done, so that's what the coffee's for. It's not there to put me to sleep, it's there to wake me up. But the breaks, while I'm drinking this coffee, I don't have to work because I actually get to stop, relax, sip my coffee. And so it's a reset and it's a boundary while I'm sipping the coffee, but at the same time, it's supposed to provide energy and clarity, and that helps them with survival. Or it's supposed to. So when it comes to coffee, sugar, cigarettes, It's this survival thing. Down the bottom, there's love. And so love is usually like that. We've got this need to be with people. But when we look at how there's connection and discovery, love isn't just connecting with people over topics. It's also kind of a reward and variety. That if we're kind of like by ourselves or with the one person for too long, we like to at least speak to others and get like a wider point of view. Alcohol often goes there. Also, so does sugar and cigarettes. So people can smoke together, they can eat together, and they can drink alcohol together. Coffee can also go there because it can also be a social thing. So anything that's like a social action, because what they're looking to do, the love is basically like connection. They're looking for people and topics where the substance is the topic and the people come together over the substance. And the discovery, they're looking for variety. So it's kind of like a bit of a different thing. And the reward, it's a bit of a treat, if that makes sense. Then to the left, where we've got status, we've got basically achievement and connection together. Cocaine, ecstasy, sometimes alcohol will go there, sometimes coffee, often still cigarettes and sugar. And so when it comes to like status, it's not just achievement that they want to get stuff done. It's connection achievement, as in they need witnesses. It's like they need a ceremony where other people are seeing them achieve. They don't just want to connect with others, they want to be on top. They want status. It's hierarchy. So when people get that need for status, what they're wanting is the achievement, energy, and clarity. And so sometimes cocaine or coffee or Red Bull, sugar, whatever it is, will seem to give them the energy to seem to get that status. And then the connection, then they can do it in front of people over topics. um, and then to the right, we've got identity, or the role that a person plays. So identity can be things like, when I'm not being a husband or wife, whatever it is, when I'm not being an employee or an employer or a worker, when I'm not doing my providing role or my caring role, who am I at the end of the day? What's my life about? And that's where they get sort of a little bit more philosophical. So that's identity is where there's breaks and discovery. Breaks is where they feel the need to reset and have boundaries. Discovery, variety, and reward. Marijuana often goes in identity because it's like at the end of the day, they want to reset and have boundaries and reward and variety. Also, sugar, also cigarettes, and also alcohol can be there as well. So that different drugs can be in different parts. There's an exercise in this ebook that I want you to take a look at about these mind maps where we get our clients basically to fill out mind maps to come up with better ways to get their achievement, which is energy and clarity, met, to get their breaks, which is reset and boundaries, met in healthy ways, to get the connection met, which is people and topics, and with discovery, which is variety and rewards. Because like telling them not to have the substance doesn't work. Especially when there's a human need that's not being met. So these mind maps are how we get people to generate ideas that work for themselves to meet those needs. So tell us what you think of the ebook. You can see kind of like the strategy section where it says 3 diagrams. That's where that goes. So again, the system acronym: socialize, 2 to 5 minutes, get to know them, do the deep and wide. Yearn, find out results. What are you here for? As in, like, you want to get off the cigarettes or you want to get the substance? Reality, how are you going with it? What's worked for you best in the past? Roadblocks, what's been in your way? The strategy, where you say, okay, so the way that we look at this substance is that instead of looking at it as just one thing and saying go cure it, we basically break it into its separate parts. So there's the physical addiction, the habit, and then the emotional battle, or else people start trying to solve the wrong problem. And then we do the trance, the hypnosis, the explore, and then wake them up, schedule the next session, take payment if that's what you're up to. So if you're up for a challenge and you need to get more clients, this is what I want to help you with. I'm looking for only 3 more people for the rest of the year to be able to help with this. So basically, we might be on the phone for like half an hour a day. There's some videos that'll get you to watch, but mainly it's sort of us working together and you in a group of 4 other peers in a group called Facebook Ad Basics, where we're going to actually help you to get the clients. So if you're at a point like where you need to bring more money in and you know that kind of you got stuck maybe like the 2020 got to you, whatever it was, but you need a jump starter to get out there, this is all doable. Like the money is out there because like you have bills and skills. Your client has problems that they need your help with, but they also have money to pay you and they're ready to do it. And so you've seen like me post like F plus receipts and all sorts of things. Like, by Tuesday this week, I'd banked $4,500 by doing these steps that I'm showing you in this challenge. And it's something that's really, really cheap. It's just the $147 per week for 3 weeks, which is close enough to nothing that you can join it. If you need a discount on that, ask me, because this particular challenge is not about the money. The main thing that I need you to do, and so I'm serious when I'm saying if you need a discount on it, if you actually do, if it's just an ego thing, nah, just pay it. But if you're down to your last dollar and you need to get clients, here's what I want from you. I want you to show up for 21 days and do these steps with me. By the end of it, you'll have exactly the tools to get 20 clients per week, but you'll already have clients booked in. You'll already have some cash flow. The people that have just done this with me, they created cash flow as they went through this, and I was on the phone to each of them nearly every day, helping them with their message, their marketing, their web page, the tech stuff, sometimes on the phone for like 3 hours a day, doing the work with them and for them, because this is how serious I am about helping you to get your client base. So if you are passionate about helping your clients, step up and join the challenge. These 3 spots are going to go really fast. So there's only 5 people per round. I will literally help you with everything. That's what this course is for, is to help you to get your business set up. So it's called Facebook Ad Basics. It goes for 21 days. Hit the button under this video, and I would love to be able to help you to really get your business up and running so that you can be out there helping more people. I'll see you on the inside.